Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 852. My opponent with the white pieces here started off with the unusual move G3. Now this is called the Hungarian opening in Lichess, but in the United States it's mostly known as Benko's opening after pal Benko, who played this in a candidates tournament back in the 1950s. Even played it against Bobby Fischer. So anyway, he gets some credit for it. So d5 is a reasonable response to just try and limit the scope of this bishop. Obviously, white is intending to put a bishop there. Let's back up for a second. I did want to mention that this b3 opening, it's the g3 opening is like the fifth choice, and b3, Larsen's opening, is the sixth choice. But g3 is more popular. It can go into a King's Indian attack or a Reti system, so it's not an unheard of way to play, or even a Catalan. So it often transposes into other kinds of openings. But my opponent has some original ideas here. So anyway, he goes with b3. I go with d5. You can see that's the top choice, shutting down the bishop on that diagonal. Then he goes bishop g2. And now I follow up with c6. I guess I should comment on this one. If he goes knight f3, this is probably transposing into a Reti opening or something like it. So he stays in original lines with bishop g2. And I just play c6 to make this a really solid defense. I guess in retrospect, having looked at this, it seems that the move e5 is playable. Now, when you have the white pieces and you have the opportunity to put two pawns in the center like that, you almost always want to. But if you have the black pieces and your opponent gives you the opportunity to put two pawns in the center with your first two moves, it's not always a good idea, because white has that extra move compared to the situation with the colors reversed, and so sometimes those pawns in the center can become weak. So I don't generally go immediately for two pawns in the center with black unless I have some specific knowledge about the position, and here I'm just improvising from move two. But it turns out e5 is playable here, and probably a good move. After c6, he prevents me from playing e5 by pushing d4 here. So I think next time, if I remember, next time I see this setup, I'll try the immediate e5. Now, a more reasonable way to play here with white is to play knight f3, again transposing into a Reti, but that also stops me from playing e4, and or that's either a Reti or a King's Indian attack, and that's fine. But he's keeping it in unique lines by playing d4 here, also stopping me from playing e5. So I just do some normal development, and now he goes f4, and at this point we're really out of the book. He could once again continue with knight f3, or maybe even c4. It's an interesting idea in these positions, trying to chip away at that center and enhance the strength of that bishop. But f4, he's going for something like a stonewall attack. So he's just playing a stonewall attack, but with the early development of the bishop to g2, which is not usually where it goes. In the stonewall attack, the bishop usually comes out to d3 to help with a kingside attack. So I can't really recommend the system for white. And the chess engine thinks that black is a little better, but it's not that far off from even. And you know, the way I play it allows him to equalize. I go with this knight e4 immediately. There are other ways to play this. Bishop f5 was pointed out by the chess engine. I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, my reasoning for playing knight e4 was I wanted to get that move in before he had a chance to prevent it. But, for example, knight to d2 would prevent me from playing knight e4. But if my bishop is already on f5, then he hasn't stopped me from playing that move. So bishop to f5 seems like a good choice there. Anyway, I went knight e4 right away. And now for the longest time here, the game stays in the range of about even. It's basically a closed maneuvering type position. It's a little bit interesting from that point of view, because I don't often get these kinds of positions. I prefer to open things up pretty quickly and get some tactics going. So this is a different kind of position for me. Anyway, I played f5 here so that when he takes, I can take back with a pawn. And as closed positions go, I was thinking this is pretty good for me. Well, especially after he played e3. I mean, my pawns here keep his bishop from being effective, his light squared bishop, and his own pawns block in his dark squared bishop, whereas I have, when I look around, I have a couple of diagonals for my bishops. I guess I still have a problem too, that I can't really make both of those into good pieces. But anyway, getting the bishop here to e6 and putting it on this diagonal seemed very attractive. Also, getting this knight over here to f6 seemed like a good idea because it's got some squares to look at from f6. So those are just the ideas that occurred to me when I looked at this position and I started to try and arrange it. There is a bit of a logjam between the bishops because, at some point I probably want to play this move e6 to allow this bishop to come out, and that will, wherever this bishop ends up, that e6 move will probably block in this bishop. But anyway, I think overall my bishops are better than white's, so I guess you have to look at the relative advantage here. Anyway, he continues with knight d7. Oh no, that's my move. I continue with knight d7. He goes knight h3. He could have considered knight e2. But yeah, this exchange and allowing me to get a pawn here also prevents him from developing his knight to a natural square. I continued with knight f6. He continued with c3, just building up his stonewall setup. And I went bishop e6. And I realized that he could play this knight g5 move. And I'd already planned in advance to just tuck my bishop back here, keep it on this good diagonal, and then just kick the knight away. So I don't think this really does anything for white. Let's see, he goes bishop d2. I kick the knight back. And then go with e6. So it does, as I say, limit the scope of this bishop, but this bishop can come out along this diagonal now. And maybe later it'll have some threats with the discovered attack. And that's actually what happens since he puts his queen on b3 very conveniently. So keeping the bishop on this diagonal, maybe moving it to the f7 square, is in my plan. And developing this bishop along this diagonal somewhere, probably e7 or d6, because the pawns are covering the other squares. And then castling, and I should be fine here. He goes queen b3. Hitting my b pawn, and then I go queen c7. I was thinking the rapid queen movement indicates maybe he's going to castle queenside, which would be pretty reasonable in this structure. Then he could start pushing pawns over here and try and open up some lines on the king side. But he has a different idea. He goes bishop to f1. So he's obviously looking at this e6 pawn as a weakness. Also, if I push this pawn forward now, he can block with the bishop, so I wasn't so eager to undouble that pawn just yet. But immediately when the queen came here, that was the idea that occurred to me, is I can undouble this pawn now by gaining a tempo on the queen. So with this in mind, I played the move b5. It stops him from putting the bishop here for the moment, and so he can't increase pressure on this pawn, and it opens up the possibility that I can play the move e5 there. In fact, the chess engine likes e5 right here anyway. He blocks. And I can go ahead and take. One thing I didn't realize is that this bishop is doubly defended. It's defended by the knight and the rook. So there's no problem here. I'm not. There's no tempo against my bishop. After this exchange, I can take on... after this exchange, he can take back. So he takes d4. And I can get this nice square for my knight, and maybe a slight edge to black here. It's not a huge deal, but my pieces are a little better. It's still a closed position, and there's no immediate breakthrough, so it's not a huge advantage to black. But black is in the better position here. So that would be interesting. Yeah, I kind of missed that this bishop was adequately supported, so I went with this b5 move. He went c4. And I just went with a6, just holding on to my b pawn. Went rook c1. So now he's got a little bit of play here against this structure of pawns that I've put up on the queen side. And I'm falling behind a little bit in terms of getting my pieces out and getting castled. Of course, he can't castle yet either. It's an interesting remove. Let's see how far we get to. We get to move 22 before either side castles. So it's pretty late with the castling. But in a closed position, that often happens. Often there are other things you need to do first. So let's see. He went with... I went with queen d7 here, just getting away from the pin on the c file. He went with bishop e2, so he's preparing to castle. I went bishop f7. I'm thinking of castling as well. But he goes a4 now, undermining the structure some more. And I go rook to b8, defending it, which I think still is a reasonable move, but the chess engine really prefers b4. And after a move like a5, say to isolate the pawn, I can play c4 to try and defend it. I guess one point is that he can't immediately take the pawn because I have this idea of pinning the bishop, and he can't easily defend it. So, and I can attack it with this pawn. So he can't. That pawn is safe. Pushing it forward, he can't take it. So a5. The idea is to isolate that pawn and develop pressure against it. Maybe you could bring the rook around like this and take it that way. Anyway, and then I might go c5 to support it, and then rook to d1 to put the rook opposite my queen. And the chess engine likes black here. I guess I've gained a little more space on the queen side. It's a position that's not at all clear to me, just looking at it. You know, this knight's a bit hemmed in, can't come here. If it comes here, it probably will get chopped off, leaving this pawn weak. This bishop has almost no moves. This bishop has only a few moves. You know, I have a little more space on the queen side, and his pieces are hemmed in as well. But it's not clear what my advantage is here that the chess engine is seeing. So even if I had calculated this line out, I don't know if I would have gone for it. So I went with the rook b8. So I think that's still okay. He takes. I took back. He takes, and I take back. Then he played bishop to a5, an interesting idea. So I have opened up lines here while my king is not yet castled, and he's threatening to maybe bring a rook in here. So I played bishop to d6 to prevent that. Let's see. He could have, you know, he was going for this tactic during the game of exploiting the pin on the b file. This pawn is pinned because my rook is loose here. So he could have played this move bishop to c4 right here. The thing is, I don't have to take it, so this pawn is still adequately defended. I could just continue with bishop e7, castle, and then that would threaten to take his bishop. And this pawn is adequately defended too, so I don't have to respond to bishop to c5, so it doesn't really accomplish anything at this point. So he played bishop a5, and like I said, he's threatening to bring a piece into c7, so I develop my bishop. I want to get it off the back rank so I can castle anyway, and now I have a good job for it, controlling the c7 square and preventing his invasions. He went ahead and castled, and I went ahead and played e5. I could have castled here, but I wanted to get this e5 move in at my first opportunity. I didn't want to give him a chance to move the queen away. And now he really needs to drop the queen back, and I would have played e takes d4. This was my plan. And I thought he would probably take back with the queen, and then I would castle. And this position is still in the range of about even, although I was thinking I should be okay here. You know, his knight is a bit funny, and my knight has a good square here that it can go to, supported by the bishop. So I kind of prefer black here, although the chess engine rates this as about even. So differences of opinion here. And in fact, instead of e takes d4 here, so let's go back to the game. In the game, if he had, just pushed this pawn forward, he should have retreated his queen. And then the chess engine says actually the best move is to take on f4. A little bit counterintuitive to me because it gives his knight a good square. He's finally got a use for this piece. And his king side, maybe it's weakened a little bit by the absence of that pawn, but that's not a huge deal. I guess one point is that, oh, and I could just castle here. I guess one point is that in various lines I can just take that knight off, and that would either weaken this pawn or maybe pull a pawn away from the king side. So maybe that gives me something to play for, but and once again it's the case where I don't see the great advantage that black has there. So in either case, those would have been better lines for white, and I think white is okay, at least in those lines, and a long game in store. But instead he played bishop c4. Probably he had the memory of this pin on the rook, and hadn't registered that my bishop is actually defending it now. So the pin is no longer operating, so I can just take the bishop. And I did, after a while, actually had to think about that for a second because I was also wondering if that was a pin there. Let's see, he played queen to c3. Okay, blocking the pawn, moving the queen out of the way. Anyway, I'm just a piece up here. I think I'll just step through the rest of the game. I didn't do anything wrong. I did miss one trick, as someone pointed out in the comments right here after I played queen to e7 and he played bishop back to c3. I just castled at this point. But already, up to this point, everything has been with check. Like the queen came here with check, and then he went here, and now it's my turn. Instead of castling, I have this bishop takes e3 tactic, winning the queen. So that would have got me the queen a move sooner, but I castled. It's still completely winning, of course. He took the pawn, and now I played this tactic, winning the queen, and then we'll just step through the rest of the game because there's not much going on. I gave up the exchange here, but just to simplify things and make the win a little bit easier. It's just an overwhelming amount of force, and I'm just going for the checkmate. And there may have been faster sequences, but I always kept a huge winning advantage throughout the game, and I did manage to finish the game with a checkmate. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon. Bye.